Section 27 and Blind SA have partnered with iBali to put together a story on the life and times of former Constitutional Court Judge Justice Zak Yacoob. The book is called Crossing the Road and charts Yacoob's legacy from a difficult upbringing as a blind child to his distinguished career on the bench. Now, Chairperson of Blind SA, Ntshavheni and Netshituni, joins me virtually now to tell us more about the project. Thank you so much for your time, Ntshavheni. A fascinating story that you are hoping will inspire so many other young people, especially at primary school level, by telling the story. Why was it important to tell the story of Judge Yacoob in this way?
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Indeed, it is a milestone we'll forever cherish. This historic moment comes as a result of the Constitutional Court case we won as Blind SA in Section 27 on the 21st of September last year, wherein we were asking the Constitutional Court to ensure that the Copyright Act of 1978 is rendered unconstitutional, because it had sections that unfortunately excluded blind people, and particularly from material that they would prefer to be reading. The sections impugned were Section 6 and Section 7 and Section 23 of the Copyright Act. Now, the Constitutional Court agreed with us to say, indeed, this is unconstitutional and we need to remedy the situation by ensuring that we include the Section 19D, which was proposed by Blind SA and Section 27. Now, when giving us that ruling, they ensured that they expanded on Section 19D to include as many aspects that affected the sections that I spoke about. Now, why we chose Judge Zak Yacoob was particularly because he was very much instrumental in the case itself. He worked with us throughout, as from 2021, when we approached the High Court to demand for that right to be included in the Constitution. So he said he's going to be available. And as a person who had been working within the system, the judicial system, being a blind person, having encountered as many obstacles as possible that we can think of, when he was reading his bio on the 19th, he did say that some of these things that are there are so touchy that he feels taken back to those moments when he was living those experiences. So those are the persons that we had wanted to include in this journey, because they would inspire the young ones, they would inspire blind people who are despondent as we speak, who would want to be encouraged somehow.
Yes, I do remember at the time when that court case was in front of the Constitutional Court that Judge Yacoob wrote an affidavit in support of Blind SA, and that would have helped a whole lot for your cause, which you eventually did win. Now, Judge Yacoob was blind from the age of 16 months. He grew up in apartheid South Africa, and he wasn't just happy to accept the lot that life had served him. He became an activist and, of course, ended up on the bench in the highest court of the land. There will be a lot in his life that so many South African children will be able to relate to, and I'm assuming that's part of the reason why you're also making sure that this book is translated into 11 different languages.
Is to make sure that the story doesn't get lost, the story is not distorted. So many people do not have to be explained for this is how the book is reading in terms of what the experiences for Judge Zak Yacoob are. A person would have to read themselves in the language of their preference to tell the real story.
How much of an impact has that court's decision had on the availability of materials to those who need to read in Braille? How much of an impact has that court decision, which then scrapped that copyright law and made it possible for you to be able to print more freely? It's not that long ago when the decision was finally handed down, even though it was a long wait until then. Has it had an impact already?
We are thinking that it will have more impact when we go forward. But realistically speaking, we had this Copyright Act excluding persons with disabilities from reading material to the tune of 95% that we could not access.
Sure.
Only 5% of the material that we could access. And that tells you that by getting this corrected, it means that we have the 95% that we could not get access to. So we think really learners are going to be experiencing very much good experiences in terms of learning at schools. Students in universities would have more access to research material that they could not have access. When I always say this, when one is doing a research or is preparing for an exam, you get the material almost a week or so before you actually write an exam.
Sure.
Whereas you would have requested the material right at the beginning of your term of school, because there would be delays in terms of the authors and the publishers giving you permission to convert material. At some instances, others would never give you that permission. So it means that you go to that exam not having read enough to can equip you to ensure that you can be a successful and a competent person in the academic world. So I'm saying we would have more realistic and proven, perhaps, if I can use that word, outcome in terms of the court case itself when we go forward. But we believe we are going to be accessing more material, and more students are going to be very much equipped when they go on their assessments.
Well, let's hope that any of those obstacles now that stand in the way of more of our books and materials being printed in Braille can just be taken away. We can only wish you and your team everything of the best in that regard. Access, and more access is what we need to all kinds of reading material. That's the chairperson of Blind SA, Ntshavheni Netshituni, joining us live there, and we thank him for his time.